Say hello to my Santa. Hey everyone, today I'm going to be starting a weekly video where on every Friday I will share reviews of books and my currently reading book or whatever book I'm going to be starting on. So the book that I will be reviewing is Her Fearful Symmetry by Audrey Niffenegger, and this book is about Julia and Valentina Poole, who are twins, and when their aunt, whose name is Elspeth, passes away, she leaves them the house, or rather the flat, in her will. But she has two conditions for them being at her flat, and that is they have to stay there for a year before they can sell it, and their parents cannot step foot into the apartment. They decide that they're going to stay there for the year, and when they do, they meet two people, Martin, who has crippling OCD, and Robert, who was Elspeth's lover. And they start having relationships with these two people, and then they start noticing some really strange things in their flat. Her style of writing is just so beautiful, so wonderful, and the descriptiveness was spot on. Like, never once did I find it all that boring, and I could keep up with what she was trying to say, and I was really expecting that. I was really hoping for her writing to be just as brilliant as it was in The Time Traveler's Wife. And I don't like comparing books because an author is going to go to a different book and everything's going to be different, and that's the way it should be. You know, you shouldn't have the same thing over again. So, yes, there were some differences in her writing, just that the way she produced the mood and the atmosphere and everything like that, that was very much different. And that leads into the story itself. I loved the story. It was very creepy and very haunting, and it was just wonderfully dark. That's the kind of book that I haven't really read. Like, I've read Stephen King, but this is so far away from Stephen King, I think. So it's very different from anything I have read, and I really liked it just because it was different and because the story was really, really great. It was a really well developed book overall. I do have issues though, and that is just that when it came to the end of the book, because the story was well developed, but I felt like she went into all this depth of developing the story and slowly putting the creepiness and all these hints out there for you, which I love that she didn't like put it in your face. It was just very subtle and just there. But the end, when things are starting to wrap up, she goes really abrupt. Like, everything just happened, and we jump time, and all of a sudden these things just are there. Just like, what? Where did all this come from? And then when at the very, very end, like the last page of the book, something happens. Robert chooses to do something that I understood why he was doing it, but I couldn't understand why he did it right at that very moment. Like, just understand it was very unexplained to me. The other thing that I loved about what Audrey Niffenegger did with this story was how she made you feel like everything was going to be pretty predictable. Like, from the beginning, not like right away, but there were like certain things that I could see that I knew was going to happen. So I thought, oh, well, that's all there was going to be to the story, and if there was, I wasn't going to really like it because it was pretty obvious. But then things started changing, and you're like, wait, what? Am I right? Am I wrong? And then all of a sudden you have this shocking reveal to do with Elspeth and her twin sister, Eddie, that I was just totally not expecting. And then you're just like, I don't know, I really have to keep on my toes because who knows what's going to be around the next corner. And I just love that because she just snuck it right up on you. I totally loved that. I love it when an author blows your mind away with something that you didn't think was going to happen, and it just leaves you with this wow. Getting on with the characters. Let's first talk about Valentina and Julia. As twins, I think that Niffenegger did a great job with describing what twins might be like with each other. And it seems like it's reasonable that that kind of relationship would happen. And I've heard that twins tend to have a different kind of relationship than normal siblings would, because the way twins are normally raised, like they're raised different, I think, in some ways. I'm not really sure. But as twins, I think that they were very realistic. But I really did not like Julia. Valentina I did like. And I think maybe that's just because I could relate to her as a person. Like, there were some very similarities between her and me, because she was a pretty shy person and I'm that way also. But Julia, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing with this book. I couldn't stand her as a character at all for the first half of the book. And then I understand you, I feel sorry for you about like the rest to actually kind of like her. I didn't really like exactly like her. Kind of like there was a respect for her. It was just really hard for me to kind of wrap my mind around her as a character. Then you have Robert, Elspeth's lover, and I had a huge confusion at one point of the book, because I thought he was like 60 or 80 years old, and that was just the way that Niffenegger made him seem, or I just don't know if she meant for you to think that way, or if that was really the way, or no, because the twins seemed really young at the beginning, and I think that's kind of why maybe I distorted his age. I found out that he was actually 30. I was like, oh my gosh, that's the relief, because Valentina and him started this relationship, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so strange and kind of creepy, because she's so young and he's so old. Then I kind of had to readjust my vision of him in my head. The other thing that I think about him was that I really did like him as a person, as a character. He seemed really nice and sweet at the beginning, but then he makes these decisions after the halfway point that I was just taken aback, because I didn't think he would do it. But he did. I was like, what the freaking hell? This is so not you. What? I don't get it. But it's what it was, and I really couldn't like him because of that. Foot fetish, much Robert. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. It was a great read. I am so happy that I actually did choose to read this. If you're expecting another book like The Time Traveler's Wife, I would put this book aside, give it away, because it's not going to be anything like it. Maybe except for the writing itself, because her writing is just as brilliant as her last book. It's not that kind of romance, so I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I recommend it very much. I think it's worth the try if this is something that you think that you'd be interested in. And that was my review. Going on to what I'm going to be reading next for the upcoming week is Bridget Jones' Diary by Helen Fielding. This is such a strange cover. I borrowed this from my library, and I'm really looking forward to trying this book out. I'm kind of cautious about it just because I've had trouble being able to deal with books that are comedic. People's humor is very different than mine. I like slapstick where the guys kind of make fools of themselves by bumping themselves against the wall, like the Home Alone kind of stuff, and things like that. I don't really like dirty humor and raunchy or anything like that. There's just some kind of humor that I just really can't swallow all that easily, so I'm afraid that maybe this humor is not going to be my thing, but I want to give it a try because the story sounds pretty good, and we'll see. It's only 200 some pages long. I should be able to finish this in at least 2 days. I'm hoping. That is it for my video. So, what have you all been reading this week, and what are you planning to read for the next week? Let me down below, and if you like what you saw, please don't forget to sub down below, and I will see you later.